Hello and welcome to Crime Watch Daily Updates. I'm your host, Anna Garcia. Is there a better place to rekindle a broken relationship than the Mediterranean? Micki, Kanesaki, and Lonnie Kocontes' story began at a big law firm in Los Angeles, where Lonnie worked as an attorney and Micki as a paralegal. Lonnie, already once divorced, fell in love and married Micki, but the two split up years later amidst allegations that Lonnie wasn't faithful. Lonnie exchanged vows with another woman soon after their divorce, but then split up with her and went back to Micki. Despite their reconciliation, Micki and Lonnie's relationship was hardly smooth sailing. On May 21st of 2006, Lonnie and Micki traveled to Spain for a cruise around the Mediterranean. Lonnie, unfortunately, had some ulterior motives. About 5 days after the voyage began, Lonnie claimed that Micki went to the canteen and never returned. He flew back to Los Angeles amid the investigation into his wife's disappearance and right into the arms of his third wife. Then, on May 28th of 2006, researchers on a vessel off the coast of Italy found Micki's body floating in the water. The autopsy determined that Micki was strangled to death and thrown into the water. Federal officials charged Lonnie with Micki's death, but a judge rejected the case, claiming that there wasn't enough evidence linking him to the crime. 6 years after the murder, Lonnie had married his fourth wife and moved to Florida. It was around then that his third wife changed her tune. She came forward and said that Lonnie urged her to lie during the FBI investigation and that he planned for Micki to die on that cruise. He was arrested in 2013. Lonnie was eventually charged with Micki's death, and in June of 2020, he was convicted of murder with the special circumstances of murder for financial gain. He was sentenced to life in prison in September of 2020. Let's look back at the ruse of a romantic getaway orchestrated by a husband who only wanted his wife out of the picture.
This was supposed to be the romantic cruise to rekindle the love affair between Lonnie Kocontes and his ex-wife, Micki. Their relationship had weathered some rough waters, which included lies, infidelity, broken promises, even divorce. But it looked like the two had found love again.
Part of the plan was to go on a cruise together with each other to try and reconcile their marriage and see if they could work it out.
Instead, their European cruise would end not with reconciliation, but in one of the most twisted murder mysteries authorities had ever seen. When Lonnie Kocontes met Micki Kanesaki, he was in his late 40s, already once divorced, and an attorney at a prominent Los Angeles law firm. She was 7 years younger and a paralegal at his firm when the two decided to marry in 1995. Micki's brother Toshi says things were going well until Micki got wind of an alleged sexual encounter between Lonnie and a younger woman.
She's always thinking about that incident.
Not long after that, Toshi says Lonnie lost his job at that big law firm and things went from bad to worse for the couple.
His marriage, his job, his income, it all started going down.
Pretty soon, the marriage breaks down completely, with Lonnie and Micki filing for divorce. Lonnie moves out of their house in Ladera Ranch, California, and shortly after that marries wife number 3.
She probably wasn't happy that he met somebody else, but if they're divorced, you gotta go on.
But now things get complicated. Lonnie has a new wife, but he and Micki still have joint ownership of their house. Toshi says Micki is on disability for arthritis in her hands and not working, but that Lonnie presses her to sell the house worth $700,000 so he can get his 50% share of the profit.
Micki was stuck financially because if they sold that home, where would she go?
And now Lonnie pulls a complete 180. Only a few months into their marriage, he divorces wife number 3 and moves back into the house with Micki. We told you, it's complicated.
He comes back to Micki even though they're divorced.
But the reconciliation quickly hits a rough patch. Police are called more than once to the house to calm things down between Micki and Lonnie.
The sheriff calls me up towards the evening. Can you come over to the Ladera Ranch, pick up your sister, Micki? you need to separate them. I guess they're having a pretty big argument, fight. Micki's kicking Lonnie's leg.
There were at least 1 or 2 incidents where deputy sheriffs responded out to the house for domestic violence issues. Lonnie was not the suspect in those cases. I actually believe it was Micki who was reportedly the suspect.
And yet, it was around this time, Lonnie apparently comes up with the idea of taking Micki on a Mediterranean cruise to patch things up between them. Toshi is surprised when he hears about it.
A lot of people take the Alaskan cruise or Ensenada or Panama. I said, well, you have to go clear out on the other side of the world.
But the couple heads to Europe and boards the ship named Island Escape in Spain. It's supposed to be the trip of a lifetime, but by the time it's over, one of these two will be dead. When Lonnie Kocontes and his ex-wife Micki set out for a European cruise aboard the Island Escape, it was supposed to be so they could reconcile their marriage. But romance soon turns to mystery when only one of them comes home. It's Lonnie, and he later tells police that after 3 days on board, he and Micki were in their cabin late at night when Micki told him she was going to the ship's canteen.
11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, Lonnie decides to go to bed, and Micki tells him that she wants to go get a cup of tea. And that's the last he sees of her.
Lonnie says he woke up hours later, but she still wasn't back. He says he searched everywhere on board for her, even checked with other passengers, but there was no sign of Micki.
No one on the ship saw her after the two of them went to their room.
After being questioned and released, Lonnie is put up at a hotel in Naples while Italian authorities investigate Micki's disappearance. But does he stay to help with the search? The very next day, Lonnie catches a plane back to the States, and just listen to where he lands.
After one night at the hotel, he ended up flying back to the United States and went directly to the home of wife number 3.
Yep, right back in the arms of the wife he left Micki for. Too distraught to be alone, or something else?
He leaves for California without her body having been recovered. You know, I can't speculate as to why he did this. You would think that maybe he would want to stay and want to help the investigators and the local police to find her.
And then there was the will. According to Micki's brother, it was written up by Micki and Lonnie shortly before the cruise.
It basically says if Micki were to die, everything goes to Lonnie, even though they're divorced. And Lonnie told me that if he died, everything goes to Micki.
The Island Escape is searched from stem to stern for any sign of Micki, with no results.
They found some wine or wine glasses. They found part of Micki's luggage. So several items were collected, but nothing critical to locating her.
Failing that, the only likely place she might be is somewhere in the open water. And the odds of finding her in the vast Mediterranean are slim to none.
Let's just say that would be an unforeseeable outcome for someone who goes overboard a cruise ship in the middle of nowhere in the middle of the night.
And yet, only 36 hours after she goes missing, a stunning development at sea. Several miles off the Italian coast, a lone research vessel accidentally encounters something floating in the water. It's Micki, dead.
But I do recall looking on the map, and it seemed like a massive area for someone to locate a body out in the middle of the ocean. I do believe it was unlikely that her body was going to be located, especially that quickly, only 36 hours later.
Back in California, Micki's brother Toshi gets the tragic news over the phone.
I thought it was a joke after I hung up. This is crazy, I'm thinking. There's no ways, but it's true.
And then, perhaps the most shocking news of all. After an autopsy on Micki's body, authorities reach one stunning conclusion. This was no accident.
Upon examination, it was revealed that she had actually been strangled and that she was dead before she hit the water. She had her jewelry with her, so she had not been robbed.
It is a major and unexpected break in the case, but does little to answer the ultimate question: who did it. And there are no answers in Lonnie and Micki's room or anywhere on the ship.
There was no major crime scene or anything like that, a bloody crime scene, nothing like that was located.
Back in the United States, the FBI takes a closer look at Lonnie. He is not charged with the murder, but there are plenty of questions about his actions leading up to that fatal cruise.
This is a man who's never traveled outside the United States, and all of a sudden he got a passport here in California. It was known as a cheap and cheerful cruise ship that was geared towards working class Britons. And it appears that he did research about it.
It really was a very much off the radar for Americans type of cruise. It was not marketed in the United States.
And then there's the cruise ship itself. Not exactly a luxury liner.
This cruise ship is a converted freight ship. When Americans especially think about a cruise ship, this is a converted freight ship. In fact, the balconies are actually welded on to the limited rooms that have balcony access.
But it does have some features that prosecutors say may have appealed to Lonnie Kocontes.
The reason would appear to be that there were no security cameras on board that ship. Additionally, he booked a particular room that had a balcony, unlike most cruise ships where it's tiered. It's a straight drop from that room where a person could fall to their death. He planned this unusual trip on a cruise ship that had, to our knowledge, never been booked by an American before.
That may be technically true for the island escape. But in fact, under its previous name as the Star Dancer out of Long Beach, California, the same ship was booked by one American in particular. He's a chiropractor named Scott Roston, and he was convicted of murdering his wife Karen aboard the ship on a honeymoon cruise to Mexico. She was strangled too and dumped in the Pacific Ocean. Micki's brother Toshi finds that quite telling.
And when I read that Karen Roston's incident, I go, wow. It's like, maybe he read this article.
And now, as the FBI moves to build a case against Lonnie, he gets the support of none other than his third wife. The same one he dumped after a short marriage before returning to Micki. And the first one he turned to after somebody dumped Micki into the sea. Her testimony will later be of special interest to Lonnie's defense attorney, Corinne Ferrantino.
She ultimately testified before the federal grand jury. In general, it was that he was distraught over what had happened, that he couldn't understand what had happened, and was very upset.
He is also backed by a friend who is also a private investigator.
He was, I think, Lonnie's biggest supporter of his credibility for being a nonviolent person and that he would never do anything like this.
But hold on, this isn't even close to the end of the story. 2 years after his ex-wife Micki is strangled and dumped over the rail of a cruise ship, Lonnie Kocontes faces a judge for the first time.
We believe that we have a case that demonstrates very clearly that Lonnie Kocontes killed Micki Kanesaki on the cruise ship that night.
He is charged with her murder by the U.S. Department of Justice and pleads not guilty. But the case quickly sinks to the bottom even before it gets underway. In a stinging reversal for prosecutors, a federal judge in California rejects the FBI's case for murder, saying the government offered only allegations and speculation to support the charges, and that, quote, there is no physical, visual, or oral evidence linking Kocontes to the murder.
As Judge Goldman said in federal court, there were 2,000 people on that cruise ship. Lonnie was one of them. I mean, there's no forensic evidence connecting him more so than anyone else on that cruise ship.
Lonnie's wife, number 3, testifies to his innocence throughout the ordeal, as does his friend and private investigator. And now Lonnie is a free man. He moves to Florida, and you guessed it, he marries wife number 4.
Obviously, I hope for the best, and I hope that Lonnie can get out from under this and get back to his life.
But not so fast. The island escape murder case only seems to have run aground, but it is still very much alive. 6 years after the murder, the case winds up in the hands of the Orange County District Attorney's Office, along with another stunning 180 in the murder mystery that refuses to die. Key witnesses, including Lonnie's third wife, who initially defended Lonnie, are now changing their stories and turning on Lonnie with a vengeance.
Wife number 3 came forward with information about the defendant's statements regarding the crime.
We believe that the evidence will show that wife number 3 was threatened and did not feel safe to tell the truth initially.
The key stuff was Lonnie had told her that he was going to go on a cruise with Micki and that he was going to have some friends take care of Micki and that she wouldn't be returning. He had threatened to report her to the police as being involved in the murder or the planning of the murder, or to have her killed.
But defense attorney Corrine Ferrantino says that wife number 3 was coached by a former friend of Lonnie's, a private investigator who turned on Lonnie after a bitter financial dispute between the two.
The DAs then embraced him when they were going to undermine his credibility before. He then was left alone with her in a courtroom, said all kinds of things to her that were very disturbing. She, following that statement then, or that interaction, she then changed her story.
In response, the Orange County District Attorney's Office says it's looking forward to a trial and that, quote, "We are ethically precluded from expressing an opinion on the many allegations and theories that are developed by the defense as part of their pretrial strategy." And based largely on wife number 3's testimony, Lonnie is arrested and brought back to California from Florida in handcuffs, where he remains behind bars. But believe it or not, there's still one bombshell left to reveal, and it's as big as they come. Prosecutors say that while in prison, Lonnie tried to have wife number 3 bumped off to prevent her from testifying against him.
He solicited 2 inmates to kill wife number 3 because she presented a threat to him in the conviction on the murder charge.
That's right. Now he's charged not only with murdering wife number 2, but charged again with soliciting to murder wife number 3.
It appears as if initially one of the inmates he approached, he had hoped would have people on the outside to do it for him.
But Lonnie's attorney is hitting back on the solicitation charges.
So you basically have a whole case built on conversations in a jail with individuals who have a extremely strong motivation to lie to benefit their own situation, and to twist his words or to misconstrue things and to set him up. I think there's just very limited evidence against him, and he would like his day in court.
Meanwhile, Lonnie Kocontes has pleaded not guilty to the new charges as he heads into his 4th year behind bars. But the case is once again moving ahead in the courts. And someday, somehow, there may be justice for Micki.